Hi, and thanks for watching this message video. Don't forget to go through the life lesson that goes with it. And for those who can't make it Sunday, don't forget that there's a podcast of that sermon that goes along with this message video and life lesson. Today, we're continuing on our series called The Path, where we're looking at all the different things that it takes to be followers, or in other words, what it takes to walk that path toward holiness and then help somebody else who's maybe off it get back on it. And to make things easier, we've changed the word followers into an acrostic. And today we're covering the second L, which stands for leading or being a leader. And hopefully everybody by this point in the series understands that we're all supposed to be leading others toward that right path of holiness. But specifically for those people who are in leadership positions over others, Jesus wants us all to remember that our leadership style, regardless of who we're leading, must match Jesus' style of leadership instead of matching the leadership styles typically seen in our world. For example, Jesus' disciples all knew and understood the different leaders or rulers or kings of their culture, and they were gravitating towards their leadership style. For instance, similar to being employees in a company, all of the disciples were competing with one another for a promotion, you could say, and that they really wanted to be Jesus' primary leaders. In fact, James and John were so confident of their own superior leadership qualities that they literally asked Jesus to sit on the thrones next to him and be his primary leaders, which led to this. Matthew 20:24 through 28. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. But Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many." Leadership, in Jesus' mind, is not about being in a position to be served, but about being in a position where we are going to serve others, which means all kinds of different people can be leaders, like grandparents and parents and teachers and coaches and bankers and doctors and therapists and realtors. It really doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not we are serving other people while we are in those positions. So make no mistake about it. God wants everyone who rules over others to embrace his servant leadership style. For example, long before Israel had any kings or rulers like that, God gave Moses, believe it or not, some instructions for those kings when they were ruling so that they would rule in a manner that was fitting for God. Here's the instructions that God gave to Moses. Deuteronomy 17:18 through 20. When he sits on the throne as king, he must copy for himself this body of instruction on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priests. He must always keep that copy with him and read it daily as long as he lives. That way he will learn to fear the Lord his God by obeying all the terms of these instructions and decrees. This regular reading will prevent him from becoming proud and acting as if he is above his fellow citizens. It will also prevent him from turning away from these commands in the smallest way. And it will ensure that he and his descendants will reign for many generations in Israel. When leaders fear God, they not only become great examples of what it means to be obedient to God's commands and not turn away, but they also remain focused on being humble and benefiting those that they lead rather than constantly looking for the perks that oftentimes come with leadership. But the opposite is true as well, and that when a leader doesn't fear God, they oftentimes become susceptible to abusing those that they lead or looking to take advantage of them. So again, based on all the Bible tells us, godly leaders fear God and therefore know their job is to serve and benefit others rather than benefiting themselves. Now, beyond providing examples of obedience to those that we lead, there are some other things that we should do as kings or rulers or leaders when we are over other people. And the Proverbs are really filled with some great pithy examples. For example, here's one. Proverbs 29:4. A just king gives stability to his nation, but one who demands bribes destroys it. While there are a lot of different ways to define stability or provide examples of how good leaders provide stability for those that they lead, there are a couple of things like safety and security that are often words that are used to describe the feelings that people enjoy when they are experiencing stability. So as followers of Christ, we must remember that a big part of our success when it comes to leading others onto a safe and secure path will depend on how stable we appear to them. And our stability as leaders is ultimately based on how much we really fear God or our proper fear of God. That's what God said to Moses, and that's essentially what Jesus said to his disciples. But to sink this point home, let's look at a few more Proverbs. Proverbs 19:23 and 22:4. Fear of the Lord leads to life, bringing security and protection from harm. True humility and fear of the Lord lead to riches, honor, and long life. Most of us would say that a good leader must do everything they can to provide financial security for those that they lead, as well as be willing to stand and fight, and if necessary, give up their lives to protect from harm those that they lead. And that's not wrong. However, these passages in the Proverbs have nothing to do with our own physical capabilities, but our confidence in a very powerful God to not only provide safety for us, but to provide for us. So, one of the best things we can do as leaders to provide security and protection to those we lead is teach them to fear the Lord or to trust in God. And if you remember correctly, according to what God told Moses, leaders must copy down those instructions and then read them daily to themselves, which means the more time we spend reading and studying the Bible, the more likely we are to fear God and therefore be better leaders. So, are you reading and studying the Bible daily? Remember, God said that was the key to keep any king or leader or ruler from turning away in even the smallest way from any of these commands, and that it was the key to developing a true fear of God. So, hopefully you can join us on Sunday, because that's what I'm going to be talking about in more detail.